Love doesn't die, people do. Ilonka quotes that Merrit Malloy passage in Netflix's The Midnight Club, and it's really at the beating heart of Mike Flanagan and Leah Fong's 10-episode adaptation of the work of Christopher Pike, in that it's not just about trying to understand the end of life but this is a show that's not about death as much as it is the things around the end of life, and what can't be taken away: memories, stories, love. It can be a little clunky in its messaging, but that's forgivable given this is a show about young people that's largely for a audience too, despite some wickedly intense imagery and the occasional F-bomb. Teenagers are supposed to be unrefined, uncertain, and unguarded. And so every time that the Midnight Club felt a little rough around the edges, I was reminded of the swirl of adolescent emotion that intensifies around issues as serious as death, more than being upset about any artistic failings. Still, fans looking for something as accomplished as Midnight Mass or The Haunting of Hill House may be a little surprised by the times this show drags in comparison or simply fumbles some of the bigger emotional beats. Think of this as a gateway drug for potential new horror fans, young people thinking about death in a new way for maybe the first time. Ilonka, an effectively vulnerable Iman Benson, seems to have everything when it's all derailed by a terminal cancer diagnosis. She ends up at a seaside hill house stand-in named Brightcliffe, an old mansion being used as a hospice center for young people. There, she finds an eccentric crew of teens who give the show its title. They gather every night in the library and tell scary stories, trying to process what's going to happen to them through their fiction. Meanwhile, Ilonka uncovers evidence that the hospice and its mysterious manager, Heather Langenkamp of A Nightmare on Elm Street fame, are hiding a secret that could save her life. And so each episode alternates between Ilonka's discoveries at the center and a story being told by one of her friends. Foundationally, the show becomes about how and why we tell stories to process the real world. And how these stories specifically say more about the person telling them than anything else. There are 8 members of the Midnight Club, and the season's overlong, 10-episode structure allows us to get to know all of them to various degrees. Standouts include Kevin, Igby Rigney, a potential love interest who tells a multi-episode story about a serial killer that gives the show some of its most striking imagery, and Anya, Ruth Codd, Ilonka's bitter but fierce roommate.